Little.
Manufacture that at times.
Eat in your car doesn't count. No calories.
Is that how that works?
Yeah, and if you're standing up in front of the refrigerator.
My grandmother says it's standing over the sink.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, no, I won't do that. That's where I draw the line.
Standing over the
I've
sink?
never
Yeah,
eaten over
no
the
calories
sink.
if you do that.
Never.
I have an ice cream.
Nope.
You eat over the stove, right?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta dip the bread in the sauce, right?
Don't do bread and sauce.
Gravy.
All right, well, it is 0 hour, and we at least have
Sounds like he's coming.
another 30 seconds. All right.
Hey, Larry?
Howdy.
Good evening.
All right, it is just about 7 o'clock, February 24th. Welcome to our special meeting, budget work session number 5 of the Bedminster Township Committee. Can I have the Open Public Meetings Act, please?
Yes, sir. Adequate notice of this special budget work session of the Township Committee was sent to the Burnsville News in Burnsville, sent to all subscribers, and also posted here at the Municipal Building as of January 16th, 2014.
You can choose a flag at either end of the table, but please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, before we get into the meat of our meeting, as we are wont to do twice every public meeting, we open up our meeting to members of the public. Any comments for us? If there's anybody that wishes to say something, this is the time to do it. Seeing none, we will move right into our budget discussion. Where we left off last, I think I see capital budget is right there.
Yeah, well,
You're very optimistic with the line here.
There's Plan
Final
G.
review.
Plan G now.
H and I.
H and I,
All right.
okay.
Ms. Sullivan, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Without exaggeration, I've run the budget probably at least 25 different ways. But before I can do it, that it really means anything, we need to settle on the capital budget. When we left, we were at capital plan version F. And I was instructed to go back and assume that we could get a 6-month extension on the hike and bike project and fund a portion of it this year, but put the majority of it off for 2015, and then the final portion of it, we would phase it in over 3 years in 2016. So Plan G does just that. And
Before we jump too deep into this, I think one of the big questions is gonna be as to how this thing goes, is
Right.
I guess the questions about the projects. Or do you want?
so before I go any further, I mean, we can talk about it, but unless Paul has some answers for us, you know.
I followed up with the DOT today, and they could not give me an answer on the extension. I will tell you, though, I'm very optimistic we will get it, if for no other reason than if you look at the actual dates of the deadline,
Mhm.
the contract would have to be awarded by December 25th,
Mhm.
2014.
Without an extension.
Without an
Without
extension.
the
So
extension.
literally, with a 1-week extension,
Right.
it's in 2050. Granted, it's the very first week of the year, but I don't see an issue with the extension. I don't know about the phasing of the project.
The point-to-point issue.
Well, it's a point-to-point project,
Right.
as it's been submitted. The question is whether or not we can phase the top course paving as a separate one. I don't have that answer.
But to award it, do you have to have all the money in place, though?
Yes.
Right, so we would need all the money in place by the awarding of it, which is the end of the year.
December.
Is December. We still would need.
If without an extension, it's the end of 2014.
Okay, but I guess what we're saying is, what can we do as far as money for 2014 and then money for 2015?
Well,
Even if we complete it all in one phase in
Right.
2015.
Right,
It's a matter of taking that money and some of it being in this capital budget, some of it being in 15.
right. I'm virtually certain we will get an extension into 2015. I can't guarantee it, but I can tell you that in my experience, in the past I've gotten extensions. I haven't gotten any extensions in probably the last 8 years because I don't want to get an extension if I don't need an extension. And so we have a very good track record.
So would that allow us then, if you assume that that's what's gonna happen, to put some of the money in the 2014 budget and then some of it in the 2015, knowing that we're gonna be spending it all in 2015?
Yes.
That's if we're not pursuing the paving as a separate project. So what we talked about, if the point to point is the critical issue for DOT, then all the money up front that you're talking about is not for the entire paved project, but it's for the portion of the grant, which is getting from point A to point B, in this case River Road to Burnt Mills, with a path.
To be paved later on at some other point, possibly, right?
It's not part, if Paul is successful in getting DOT to support this, it's a finished stone path from River Road Park to Burnt Mills Park. The paving is separate. I would almost, at that point, say the paving is separate.
It's a separate contract. It will need to be done. You need to do that to create, to create that accessible path.
But not for
But-
purposes of the DOT
Right.
grant.
That's correct. Again, that's the one I am less confident on. My feeling, just reading between the lines, probably 50-50 chance.
But you may not receive that other 25% of the grant until that paving's done?
No.
No,
we
because-
would use 100% of the grant
To install the
in,
path.
for
Because
the
the
main
grant,
project.
the grant at that time is only tied to the project. And if the project is the point to point as a finished stone path, then you get the entire grant to spend on that project and that contract. And then I would look at the paving as a separate project outside the scope of the grant application process and outside the scope of the initial contract itself.
So Paul, what you're saying on the 50-50 is whether DOT will agree that we could have a project that does not include paving.
Correct. That we will be able to keep 100% of their grant
And not
without
have
paving the
paving.
path.
Now, what's the timing of this? So when would we expect to get some sort of feedback from DOT?
I don't know. It could be this week, it could be next week. I have no idea.
Okay.
The's no deadline for them to make a decision.
Okay.
I've told them that, we gotta get the budget done.
Try to prod DOT at different levels?
It's possible, yeah, we can do that. I don't know that will guarantee us an answer, but we can certainly ask.
For Judy's purposes as a placeholder, so that we can move on and try to, project on the cap and everything else, can we take part of that, as I said, for 2014 and instruct Judy to, and then put the rest and move it on to 2015 as part of the capital?
That's virtually what version G does.
Okay.
Mhm. G puts 200,000 away aside in an ordinance for the project this year.
Okay.
We don't touch it. Then next year, we would fund the first phase, which Paul gave us an estimate of 416,100.
Less the 190,000.
Less the 75% of the award.
75% of the
Which is
award.
just 200.
Less
Okay.
the 200 from this year, which would be
Mhm.
in an ordinance. So we would only be having to come up with 25,718. And then I put the paving portion, the last phase, over in 2016, the 138.6, and then I applied the remaining
See,
25%.
but I don't think it would work that way.
Probably
No,
not.
you would get the full DOT grant amount in 2015.
Because
You'll get zero grant.
Because we
in
finished
2016.
with the point to point.
Yes.
So
You're gonna get it 100% in 2015 because they agree with the partial project as being the funded project, or they'll say, forget it, you gotta pave the whole thing in 2015.
Well, then would we have to fund 200,000 necessarily? We could, if we're gonna get the
You'd
full
fund
amount,
less.
we could fund less.
Correct.
Yeah, because you're not gonna actually even need that money. That's
You
all.
could drop 40,000.
That's all coming over in 2015
Yeah.
under the 2014 ordinance, so why doesn't it even need to be in the 2014
Cause
column?
you're still gonna need it to pave within the years down the road, so you can just keep it there.
Yeah, I mean, look, the money's gonna come out at some point.
Mhm.
Depending how
But-
we would word the ordinance, we could
Yeah.
use it for other things or
Right,
cancel
right,
it.
and then the other issue is phasing it in with the other, capital projects for 14, 15, 16.
And Paul, if we get the extension, we don't award the contract until 2015, therefore we don't need the funding in place until 2015.
Correct.
Okay.
Paul,
Well-
reasonably, could this be done, could the entire, if we do the finished stone path, could that be completed in 1 year?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
John?
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Let's talk about the turtle tunnels. We have two options, and when last we met on this, we didn't quite have all the,
Are there variations in H and I?
Yeah, there are,
Yeah.
with the hike and bike.
The hike and bike.
And also
Right.
with the turtle tunnels too.
but I just wanna get out on the table the true costs associated with the different options on the turtle tunnel. And then I wanna look at H and I, so we can look at it as kind of in the bigger picture.
And
I mean, I know we're gonna bounce back and forth on it, but last time we spoke, I don't think we had a true picture of what the costs associated with the federal grant were.
And I've been digging and digging and digging on this since we spoke. And the more I dig, the more concerned I am about trying to get this federal money. The conversation today with the DOT is that they don't know of any municipalities that have actually qualified.
Qualified for receiving the
For
grant.
receiving
There's
the
a
money.
packet like, he's got it,
Yeah,
that
I've got it here.
of all the things you have to be able to do, is a
What
checklist.
Give us a flavor for some of the things that would be difficult for us to achieve.
Okay, where's one of my favorite
This is
ones?
the grant for the turtle tunnel, right?
Right.
Coming out of a different part of the DOT.
NJDOT through the federal.
Do your procedures require lease versus purchase analysis?
One of them was we had to inspect our trucks in a certain way every 2 years, our equipment.
Well, there are certain requirements for asset management. There was one requirement that said, do you first look to federal surplus materials before you purchase them otherwise?
You buy new equipment or you buy surplus equipment?
What is this?
And the question is, I don't know how many
Paul, what is
no's.
this applicable to?
This is applicable to demonstrating that you're qualified to take the federal money.
The 200.
So it's not project specific, it's.
No,
it's
it's our
grant
policies
specific.
and procedures for the town, which most towns don't work
For
this
the
way.
263?
No, for the 180,
180.
180 for the
Now,
turtle.
now, the difference why it's happening now is because this money is directly from the Fed being funneled
Through the DOT, but it's
Now,
federal.
the other DOT money that we've gotten over the years for various projects, that was state DOT money and not federal?
Well, it may be a trickle down from the feds, I'm not sure, but it's not managed the same way.
There's a couple of ones
It's
I
not,
saw.
it's not the same kind of, doesn't
But
have the
some of this
strings.
also involves our staffing levels
Yeah,
within our
there's a,
financial.
yeah, Debbie was looking at some of the things relative to what the financial requirements
Yeah,
are.
they're-
But as an example, it's a requirement of this grant that you have an inspector on the project 100% of the time that the contractor's working. I don't mean, put it in silt fence, you have to watch every minute he's putting in silt fence.
And that
And
is
it's-
money, and that inspector cannot be part of the 180?
The 180 does not pay for design, does not pay for inspection, does not pay for contract management. In fact, what they told me today is if there is a change order on the project, they will not pay for a change order. Even if it's below the 180. If a contract was 150 and we had a $10,000 change order, No, you don't, they won't pay for it.
Some of the
And the
questions are here
contract-
are about
the
that.
auditor or the inspector has to be separate and apart, it can't be, can it be you?
If I'm designing it,
You've been awarded the
I can't inspect it.
and then this
It has to be somebody else, and there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can have another engineering firm do it. You have to go out, there's a whole RFP process you have to do to get that engineer to do the inspection. Or you can, for example, John could inspect it. He could spend, a few weeks out there in a lawn chair watching the contractor.
Perfect.
That could be done. You could hire an employee, seasonal employee, to sit out there and watch him the whole time. You could do that.
So the person could be out there and not even really knowing what they're looking at.
That's not a good idea, but technically, yeah, because the contractor will very quickly know if the guy knows at all what he's doing. So, I mean, you don't want to just hire an empty suit.
Right.
You got to have somebody out there that knows what they're doing, because it'll be a problem.
It'd be obvious.
So, it just makes me nervous.
And when you hire that person, whoever that is, I mean, are we subject to prevailing wage? Requirements?
He's just like your employee. If it's a township employee, it's just like you hire a township employee.
So what are you saying?
You have to make them a season.
I'm saying it's gonna cost you less if you do it yourself. If you have John do this construction project, you're gonna save money and time.
And Paul, we'd have to fill out that checklist, submit the checklist to find out if they are going to grant us the.
We have 2 years to
The
complete
grant.
the checklist.
We have 2 years to get through this checklist and all
That's
these
how
other
detailed it
things
is.
here.
What,
And
2
meet all
years
the-
before then they hand us the money? Or
No.
can you get the project done and
in 2 years.
here's my homework, here's how much I've gotten done so far?
In 2 years, what you have to do the first 6 items on this list, and I'll read you generally what they are. You have to have a kickoff meeting and meet with the DOT. That's pretty simple. They outline what all these things are, I'm telling you. Then you have to prepare the a NEPA document, which is an environmental document for the DOT to review. So there's additional environmental studies required. You have to do the consultant selection for the design contracts. Now, we probably don't have to do that, but you may have to go out to bid for
Paul,
me.
can you go back, let me just see the provision about the NEPA.
It's the bottom of that page in your left hand.
So much for shovel ready, right?
Now, can you just give me some background on what we have? So, I guess, here it is right here. So, from DOT, I'm pleased to inform you that we've been selected to receive $108,000 for the Transportation Enhancement Program funding for the River Road Turtle Tunnel Project. So, the award will be contingent upon the recipient's ability to comply with all the applicable federal financial management, project implementation, and oversight risks. Whole mess of references to federal.
So at some point.
And no town has ever
Regulations.
qualified.
So at some point they can say, sorry, you didn't do
Counties do.
paragraph C,
Towns,
item
municipalities do
6,
not. Usually.
right?
How were we chosen to receive that?
We made the application for it. I mean, if you read the grant program, it's a great program, and this project is right in line with the goals of that project. The problem is, it's not designed for use by municipalities. Of course, they never said that. When you look at it, none of this fine print is in the application documents.
Who would it be for then?
Counties.
Counties and the state.
Counties and state.
Somerset County has done this through an interlocal with Somerville Borough. They've done a federal grant like this. Now, there's a potential that Somerset County would do it with us, where we would basically turn the grant to them, but we will pay them to do that.
Yeah, we will likely get no reduction in financial obligation going through the county.
It
They
costs
would
us the
just-
same, if not
It'll
more,
cost us, yeah,
but
well,
we can get it done off our plate.
yeah.
And so in the original application process, there's no review of the eligibility and applicability
No.
issues, so this is only, hey,
Yeah.
congratulations, you
Yeah.
won $180,000.
Now just
Congratulations!
jump through these hoops.
Now you have to pay $300,000 to get your $200,000 project done.
You never
Yeah.
forget.
I
It's
will.
it's like winning on a game show and finding out you gotta pay tax on that new car.
Above and but
Yeah.
in addition, I mean, this sounds like it's,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
the requirements and the added burdens are,
Yeah.
Well, getting back to one of our original questions was, you know, our trepidation over sending a grant back and, you know, being able to qualify for another one. In this case, because it's a federal grant, that's not
No,
applicable.
no, the DOT grant for the bikeway is like the DOT local aid for roads. They look at performance on that. They do not look to this federal grant for performance for future grant eligibility.
Yeah, turning away the hike and bike path grant puts us in jeopardy
Right.
for future road projects. Lord knows our roads will always need repair.
But
This,
here-
the Turtle Tunnel project
Doesn't.
does not have the same standard.
It sounds to me,
We might not be able to put in future turtle tunnels, maybe.
sounds like a thanks but no thanks.
Well, last time we discussed this, we didn't have all the.
We didn't know about
all the-
qualifications.
Right.
all the qualification
Right.
requirements and all the extra costs. Because it's real easy to say, why would you turn away $180,000?
well, I mean,
Mhm. There's a
before.
lot of strings attached.
Before we, so, can you quantify the added expense and the time period to go through this eligibility evaluation?
Well, I think we have 2 years to do it until May 1st of 2015. So we have until May 1st of 2015. It'll,
That's on passing the eligibility criteria.
yes,
But in the meantime, we have a permit obligation.
which goes until,
16, I thought you said.
let me look. I've got the year. The wetlands permit expires in June of 2016. So that's not the critical path item. Okay.
But is there any opportunity with this grant to extend it past 14?
Extend what past 14?
Well, we've got it right now in the 14 budget.
What's that, the
If
turtle
the-
tunnels?
Right.
The
Doesn't it have to be?
turtle tunnels need to be done in 2016,
The tunnels have to be done in 2016.
but no later than.
But what
We don't have an
What
obligation.
forces it
That's
to be
right.
on the 2014 budget?
Nothing right now.
Well, what forces it to be on in the
Save
2014
the
budget is,
money.
okay, let's look at
Yeah.
the whole scheme of things here.
Mhm.
The southwest connector of the bikeway, a portion of that is permitted with the Turtle Tunnels and River Road Park. It was all one project under the flood hazard area permit. A portion of that southern connector is permitted. We don't have the wetlands permit for that. That would be separate. But with that permit that permitted a portion of the bikeway, the Turtle Tunnels are part of that grant. Once we start working basically south of the northern portion we've done now, we have to do this Turtle Tunnel aspect of the project,
Yep. Okay.
which brings that in.
Well, that's another dilemma, because how do you go forward with the hike and bike on a schedule that is now gonna have, where this grant is gonna have, or the funding for that and the turtle tunnels is gonna have a direct impact? I don't know how you coordinate the timing of these.
Well, that's kind of why we have to do a good portion of it this year. Because if we simply kick the can down the road to 15, then instead of 2 hard to swallow capital projects, then we have Robertson Road, which is 3 things to swallow, and we can't swallow 2 things right now. And Robertson Road ain't getting any better, so, especially after this winter. So, there is good reason that it is the way it is in 14.
Yeah, and if we look at it from the aspect of having John do the work, and we've talked about this, and it's certainly work that he can do, your cost is gonna be dramatically reduced. I don't have to do the level of detail on construction documents that I have to if I go out to bid. If I do federal, I gotta go even to a greater level of detail. The level of inspection is far less. There's no contract management, you know, so, and John's costs be a fraction of what it would be.
But
for
the
a
numbers,
contractor.
the numbers that I do have, that
Mhm.
have been provided, are really not that much different, so please correct me with what I've given. On G, I have the 215 minus the 180 grant, plus additional engineering for this outside engineering, you told me 30.
Mhm.
And then for the additional paperwork to provide bid documents, it would be another 12 on top of the 25 we
Mhm.
already put aside for you,
Right.
making 37. So altogether, 102,000, which includes the 180,000 grant. Now, if you turn to the next page, H, this proposal, I took all that out and went
Right.
back to the plan.
Turning away the grant
We're
and
turning
doing
away
it
the grant,
ourselves.
just John is doing it. We used a number of 75. We have an old road project ordinance that still has $16,400 in it that we could apply to this. And then still the 25,000 for your engineering. But with that, we're still.
Yeah, but I think that would be reduced,
What, even the engineering design
75?
to the 25,000
on Plan H?
Plan H.
on Plan H. That would, if I don't have to do construction documents, which I don't have to do for John, we're probably talking 50 or 60% of that $25,000.
Okay.
Well, so say 15,000 maybe.
Yeah.
We could plug in the number of
Yeah.
15 and that'd be safe.
Mm-hmm.
Where do permits fall in?
We,
We
it's
don't
already,
need
it's already
permits. We
permitted.
don't need permits.
It's already
So
permitted.
the permits are in the hike and bike trail, right? There's 50,000 in
Yes.
permits for the hike and bike. Okay.
Now, Judy, you had 16 from.
There's an
that's-
old road project ordinance that still has money left in it of 16,433 that could be applied to this type of a road drainage project, if you
But-
wanna call it that.
But you have it in H but not in G.
No, I didn't use it in G. G, we were funding it,
Mainly through a grant.
it's through a grant, it's not a road project at that point, it's gonna be funded out to an outside provider, an outside contractor. John Mance isn't gonna touch it. If John Mance isn't gonna touch it, then we can't use that grant.
So that grant can't be used for the engineering?
Or not the grant, the ordinance. The ordinance is for our own.
Okay, it's only for, but would that include Paul or no?
Mhm.
Because under G, there's still some element here that's associated with Paul's work.
Right, you could
Yes.
still use that ordinance in G if you wanted to.
The 16,433, it's very, the wording in it is very broad, it's for all costs associated with the road project, it can be used for Paul.
But the lion's share under G was gonna be the grant.
Right.
Mhm.
Plus
So-
the other benefit is John's work is, it's great. We know John's work. He'll do a good job.
I'm sure you can put in a.
But on
great
ju-
turtle tunnel.
on just numbers, so the implementation of the federal turtle tunnel project, 215, additional 30, and additional 37 on on the inspection.
Right, and
Additional
as Debbie
s-
said,
yeah.
we could take that 16,433, we could.
Right, I'm not
Yeah.
taking the 16 out, so net of the grant, you're at 102.
Mhm.
And if we just look at Turtle Tunnel at 75, I'm gonna ignore the 16,000 ordinance. So 70, 75 and 25, and you said that 25 is gonna drop to
It's
about
probably
15.
closer to 15.
So you're
So that's
90.
90.
So now we're comparing 90 to 102.
Mhm.
All in,
No using the 16,000 prior ordinance.
so all in expense from the municipal expense, the taxpayers from Bedminster can pay 102 with the benefit of a $180,000 grant, or 90 and no grant. So the math is easy. You spend 90 rather than 100.
Now, the one thing that we haven't talked about on this is the 90 would be great. We could use John's time. We wouldn't be spending federal tax dollars, which come from somewhere. We'd be using our own resources. But also, John, tell me the price of your guys now being absorbed in time on this project, as opposed to giving it to somebody else, and now that's off your plate. There's an opportunity cost of your guys doing it, because your guys are gonna be somewhere in town doing something. And you're gonna be at the turtle tunnels if we go with that for $10,000, $12,000. Is it worth that? I don't know.
I don't have an answer on how long it's gonna take us to do.
No,
The one key thing is if we're doing it, timing is on our side because we
Mhm.
can piecemeal this together
Right.
whenever we can.
Mm-hmm.
We can do bits and portions of it when we can
Mm-hmm.
and get things done.
Do we have a window? We have a construction window for the turtle tunnel? Are there any blackout periods?
No.
Even with that.
No migratory.
No,
What about the tree
There's no
cutting
tree
with the,
removal.
with the,
there's no tree removal,
the
so
wood
we don't
bag or
have the
whatever
Indiana,
it
we don't
was.
have the Indiana bat issue.
Well, the way to look at it is, I think this is no different than the way you incorporated taking down Hillside Avenue, the building there, putting the brine system together. No, I mean, you did
No, I
it.
thought you were taking down Hillside.
No, I'm just saying, John's always had, every
Yeah.
year he seems to have a special project over and above the normal operational and maintenance responsibilities, and you've been able to maneuver it in.
It's just
you
like
know?
what we did last year on Country Club Road. We repaired all the basins down there. There's 30+ basins down there. And we fixed every one of them. It took
Right.
us a couple months
So
to do.
you always have a special project every year
So
that you're
it's
able to
stuff to
implement.
do.
Or
And
special
that's,
projects.
and you gotta remember that 75,000 is just, it's a number that we pulled out of the air at this point in time. We don't know what the actual costs are. I have Paul's estimate that he put together for the grant application, and when I look at some of those numbers, we could come in a lot less than that.
Well,
It's just a
well,
Well,
placeholder.
to that point, so 75 is a placeholder, but is it gonna
No.
rise, is it gonna drop?
It's gonna drop.
Going
It's gonna
down.
drop.
Yeah, but we got an
But we
insurance
shouldn't
policy in that
bank on
ordinance.
that.
Right, but I just wanted, if we're saying that right now, the all-in for the taxpayers on capital plan G option or the H option is that there's a $12,000 difference from whatever the municipality is going to outlay. If the 75 is a conservative number and that 75 could drop, and if we get the benefit of the drop, then great. But I just wanted, that you're comfortable that 75 is, if we do it ourselves,
That's
the
the
upper
real
limit.
high end.
That's real high.
now,
end.
do we need to worry about how these two projects or versions of the project impact John Park and his group?
Well, yeah, because he wants to get started like next week.
He wants a silk fence installed right by.
Yeah.
But if we,
we
even
go
if
do
we
it
took the,
ourselves.
but if we, even if we took the grant,
We never, the
We
way we're
would-
gonna be starting next week.
yeah, we wouldn't get through that checklist.
For a year.
And now granted, you don't have to have the checklist done, it sounds like,
Yeah.
but you're still gonna have to go out to bid, you're gonna have to get new drawings put together. Paul, how long, if you went out to bid, would we actually have shovels in the ground?
If we went out to bid under the grant,
Yeah, if we did it under the 180, the federal grant.
Yes,
we
you
we
would-
can't do that until we pass
The eligibility.
Right,
the eligibility.
Right.
But I can't see getting through the eligibility in less than 8 months.
And you can't promise
Absolutely
us.
impossible. And I
And
can't
right,
promise you get
promise us
through.
that we would even be deemed eligible.
Because if you look at this checklist, there's lots of, everything's yes and no. I don't know if one no means you're done, or 5 no's means you're done.
yeah, if you have to score an
You
80
wouldn't get
or
a
100.
shovel in the ground until 2015.
So,
So that March
so
15th date.
John Parks, the impact on the folks that wanna get this done, the Audubon folks, New Jersey Fish and Wildlife, is negative if we went with the federal grant.
You'll get it done more quickly if you do it in-house. No doubt in my mind.
So,
Probably
Who's
by a
gonna-
year.
Who's gonna let them know?
that'll probably be me.
Thank you.
You get all,
Yes.
you get all the good jobs.
That's
Well,
my,
I would think that
that's
they
my
would,
job.
that would be something that, once you explain to them.
They're gonna get a better
The
deal.
why of it.
And they'd be happy timing wise.
It's,
It
it's
may.
better all around.
So, it would appear, as we're weaving through this capital plan, that the portion that is Plan H for the Turtle Tunnel seems to be, with some slight modifications, the consensus way to go.
The only thing we'd have to decide, Mayor, is do we want to apply ordinance 2011-04A to it?
Well, let's look at the rest of the plan before we try to
Right.
shake that part of the the couch.
I think one way to look at this, and
Coins.
I know that you spent a lot of time
I
on
like
this,
the way
but what Judy has done is she's taken some capital fund balance monies and put it to some of these
Right.
costs. If you look at your projects, each individual project by itself and what the cost is, then look at what you have available as far as capital fund balance
And
to
apply
throw
it.
with that.
Okay.
Then it's probably a better way to look at it.
Yeah, because then it's coming right out of surplus.
Right, I know, I mean,
Yeah.
she's trying to come up with a number that's gonna satisfy the budget, but yet, just a couple different ways to look
Right,
at it.
our guideline, which I've mentioned to you before, is we have a pot of leftover capital money. It's like, I forget it, it's 446 or something. And with the auditor, Debbie and I talked, and they recommended between 250 and 275 remain in that pot for an emergency.
Right.
You don't know.
Yeah.
So subtracting out 275, it gave me $206,000 that I could apply to some projects. Did I wanna use all 206? No. But I think I used about 200, or maybe slightly over.
So that the 16,000 in that
That's
ordinance.
that's not capital fund balance.
It's not capital fund balance,
That's an
but
ordinance. It could be used for
but-
something else.
it could be used for something else, but that ordinance is related to
Roads,
roads.
and you also have.
So it's essentially capital fund balance
Yes.
specifically for roads.
Yes. Or it could be canceled and it would go into the pot to be
Cancel
used
that
for
and then
anything.
back to surplus.
There still is the airport road capital fund balance, is that?
Those are, that's in that 205.
The
That's
205
in that
number?
205.
So that we have not
Haven't
canceled
done
that
it yet
back.
until we need to.
And so if you look at Plan G here, if we go down to pavement management plan and vehicle replacement program, if you really look at it, we're taking a vacation on both of those this year. If you really look at it. Because we have a pavement management plan of 50,000 that's being funded by last year's pavement management balance of 50,000.
No, that's new,
No.
that's
Isn't
new,
it?
that's new.
No,
monies.
In G, it's
In
fund
G?
balance.
No, it
Yeah,
is.
it's fund
It is.
balance.
It
Fund
is.
balance in
Fund
G.
balance.
So we're
Still fund
essentially
balance.
not putting any money away.
It's not, it may not be in an ordinance yet, however, it's available to.
Right,
you're
but
correct,
it's
you're
not,
correct.
but we are not taking money and saying, we're gonna put a little bit more for rainy day
Exactly.
for
No,
pavement.
it's,
Right.
the
it's
following year.
leftover money.
We're just using last year's money and saying that.
It's not new money.
It's not new money,
There's
right.
no additional money going in.
The only, if you.
And the same thing with the
I
vehicle.
is where, now, if you, we jump to I real quickly,
Mhm.
for Turtle Tunnel, so you're applying some additional capital fund balance.
Yeah, I was kinda, I threw everything in
Yeah,
here.
so I is G, except you threw another 25 at
Right.
the turtles,
Right.
and you bumped up the payment.
Put the hike
management
and bike
plan.
all into one year.
But you also bumped up the payment management plan to
Yes.
75 as opposed to 50
Yes.
in G and H.
And the vehicle, right. Because on I, we're also doing a short-term current fund loan
Right.
of $270,000.
I asked Judy to just look at what
So
running
it-
debt for that.
It would
what
give us
loan
the
would be.
ability to do a little bit more than what we're doing.
And the reason I asked her that is if these things don't all fall into place, we have the funding this year, granted we're doing it on some borrowing. But if we did wanna phase this stuff out, we could use that money.
Well, this is if we
Going
don't
forward.
get the extension and we
Right,
have to do
don't
it
get the
now.
extension, but if we did get the extension, we could use that certain fund balance off of that for the following year, couldn't we?
From the loan?
Right. In other words, if you didn't spend it all in 14, because say.
Well, the loan is going into the capital budget, or is it
Right, the
earmarked for a particular project?
Well, you'll do an ordinance and earmark it for whatever project you wanna
Right.
use it for,
Right.
if you decide to
Right.
take out
And
a
if we
loan.
don't use it,
If we don't lose it,
we don't use it, we don't use it.
we would just pay it back,
Right,
Just go back into the fund balance then.
well, to
Pay it.
wherever it came from, current
Mhm.
fund.
pay it back.
I think John does make a good point, though. Makes the picture a lot clearer if you look at the actual true cost of each one of these items on the
Right.
capital budget.
Without the
And then-
fund balance.
And
Right.
then maybe at the end,
How much
Depending
do
on
we
what your
wanna,
total
how much
is,
do we wanna go back and
how much
shake?
do we wanna hit the piggy bank for?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Find out what the real cost
Right,
is.
this,
Exactly.
right, this is a Larry Judy.
No, your
decision
analysis,
that
is-
goes-
you
that
know,
goes
your
way back.
analysis is good, you know, compare the apples with the apples,
Right.
which is the true cost, rather than, you know, how inexpensively we can end up doing it ultimately.
You, Debbie did do a short analysis on what a loan would do.
Okay.
Do you wanna see that?
Which-
You mean the
yeah, which
interest
page
rate
is
is
that?
what you're talking about?
If
Correct.
you look in your package, towards the bottom, you'll see a page like this, it says bidder and PPAC Gladstone Bank under it.
Mm-hmm.
Shoot like this, it's a couple down, that's it.
Right, and all that is.
Maybe Debbie wants, you kinda explain this to her?
Yeah, when we did the note in December, this list is the bidders and the interest rate that they bid. So I just plugged in the $270,000 just to see what those rates, you know, what the total interest would be.
So based on what they bid the last time.
Right, which is, you know, this is just obviously very approximate, however,
Well, a huge difference between PPAC and the other
well, yeah.
lenders.
Yep.
But if they bid in a
That's just to
similar
get, this is
manner,
just to get some kind of an
you know,
idea.
you're talking between $1,500 and $4,000 in interest.
Mhm.
Right, you're not talking about a lot of
90,000,
money.
say if we did it over 3 years, it'd be 90,000 a year, so it'd be between 90 and 95,000 that you would be bumping up your debt,
Right.
your debt service.
And it's not that I wish to incur more debt, but I'm concerned about just driving too dangerously low on the capital budget over a given year.
Ted, what was the rationale for keeping the capital budget? I think the number you had said was about 425 or 400?
Well, our appropriation each year, just to try to be consistent so that we can build up some funding, so that over each year you don't need a couple $1 million because one of your roads is in such terrible shape and you haven't saved any money towards it.
Right, pay yourself first
Right.
and put some money away.
Yeah, there was one of the sheets we had looked at one of the meetings where I showed you capital budgets going back to 2005 or something. And our normal capital budget is between $400,000 and $500,000. And when you dip, say, to 300 or below for 1 year, then the next year, well, how do you come back from 300 to go back to 450? You gotta come up with 150,000.
It's like skipping a year on your IRA.
Yeah.
If you skip a year on your IRA, it may get you through a year or two, but later you may need that money.
Right, and it's gonna affect your tax rate because if you've got a lower budget because you budgeted
Artificially
less.
low, because you just skipped a year on.
Right.
Exactly.
You take it out of the capital budget and you're putting it onto to debt service, so you're actually moving it from the capital.
Yeah, but the capital budget is funded from your current fund budget. Okay, you budget for it in operating and then you pay it over to capital, so it all comes out of your amount to be raised by taxation. Originally.
So the idea of the loan is in capital.
I.
In I.
And that's assuming that the whole hike and bike
Well-
path gets done in 2014. right?
It's assuming none of the things we're asking for come to fruition. Now, if we can get it kicked 6 months down to 2015, if they will go for the idea of doing pavement 2 years hence or further out, that's all gravy. We already have the money up front. If we don't need the money, we can pay off the loan early. We
Yes.
can carry it forward. My point is, if we do something like this, which again, I am not thrilled about, but I think it smooths out the capital budget a little bit more. It ensures that maybe not vehicle replacement, but pavement management, we actually do put a little towards that. And we continue to kind of keep building
Well,
for year to year to year.
borrowing money for building roads, or
Mhm.
bike paths or whatever, that's what you're supposed to borrow money for, not your day-to-day operations. So
Right.
if we have to go against what it has always been we've been adverse to borrowing money. This is the one time or one category that it makes
having
Makes
the,
sense.
having the two large capital
Yeah.
projects gives us a little anomaly in our capital budget.
Mhm.
The goal is to kind of smooth that out by spreading those payments over a couple of years. Again, I would rather not do it if I don't have to, but
Paul, I mean, we're to the point now where, you know, we have to plug in a number. Would you be able to have some direction for us by maybe the next budget meeting, so? Because,
number-
you know, whether or not us trying to pick one on
On the extension, on the 6-month extension and the point-to-point thing at 2015.
I'd love to say yes, but I'm not the one who makes the decision.
yeah.
You know, I don't know.
You mean you might have to wait on someone at the state to answer your question?
Shockingly, yes.
And it may not happen in 1 or 2 or 3 days?
Believe it or not,
All right.
how did you leave off with them?
we'll get back. I gotta talk to my boss. She's not in today.
All right, if we took Plan I and we took the Plan H,
We could take a placeholder here
the
for June.
Plan H turtle tunnel out of it and placed it in there. Another thing I was asking for was, as we try to juggle between having a relatively smooth capital budget, a consistent capital budget, which even I isn't, and that will drop even lower. How does that, the operating budget we've been looking at, and the debt service, how are those things affecting each other? Because it's one thing to look at this and say, great, we got a capital number that's down, but on a page that we don't see, we have a
The
debt service number going up,
Well,
but we
the
don't know how that is.
Right, the debt service would go up if, obviously, if you're gonna
Right.
borrow money. I think,
Right.
did I,
Yeah, you gave it to us.
Which
Yeah,
page is
working.
that?
you can see what debt
The debt
service
service.
is right
Is it
now
this one?
for 2014. And so in your current fund budget, which basically means it's a part of your amount to be raised by taxation.
Debt
Right
service, there we go, it says
Okay.
debt service.
So the $747,000 is what is in your 2014 budget.
Mhm.
The monies down below is paid from open space, so that's not part of your budget. So that's where you're at, and if you wanna borrow money next year, you're gonna add an additional 90 to it for the next 3 years, or, you know.
94 or 93
Right,
with interest.
So the net interest payable on the banks, this is 270, this is assuming a 3-year, is based on a 3-year term?
Yes.
Right, and the 270 I don't have incorporated into this debt service. This debt service is as
Right.
it stands right now.
So you'd be adding 270 to the 747, 351.
Well, for 2015, we'd
Oh, no,
be
you're-
adding
it's 90,
90
90
something,
90 to it, right,
approximately,
okay.
if that's what you
Two-
chose to
what,
do.
For 14 and then for 15.
Right.
14?
Well, 14, there would be no payment.
There'd be no
14,
payment.
We
14,
started with
14.
15, 16, and 17.
15, 16, and 17.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And the net interest, so the 4,000, if we go with 4,000 as, you know, we take it conservatively.
Worst case scenario.
Yeah.
That's 4,000 over 3 years, that's a total
Yes.
interest payment over the 3-year term.
I'm a little confused. We're not doing anything in 14?
You're not paying.
No,
you're
we-
not-
you
you're
don't
borrowing,
pay-
borrowing,
14
you're borrowing
and
in
you start paying in
14.
15.
You don't have to
pay
The
start
down-
paying
down
back.
16 and
payment.
17.
Right, but for budget purposes, we have to put the 90 into, plug it into 14.
Money just shows up in
Right.
borrowing against 15, 16, and 17 taxes.
Okay, okay,
Right.
We do have to put down a 5% cash down payment,
okay.
which is figured in there.
And Deb, you're saying there's no other transactional expenses?
The auditor
No, we're
said
gonna do it all
no, he said
in-house.
it's all gonna be done in-house. We
Right.
don't
So
have
we
any
don't need
professionals to do anything, no.
Whether it's $1,000 for the
Mhm.
bond attorney or
Nothing.
anything else.
There's not, he would do it himself.
So, coming back and looking at the capital plan I, so real numbers associated with these capital plan projects is that you would have to add, and I know it's not for the capital budget, but just that's where the money's coming from. Add 90 to 15 16 and 17?
No, the 90 would be in your current
No,
fund.
no, I know the money.
But he's thinking cost overall.
I'm just thinking,
He's not, he knows it's not in
real.
this budget, but he's just trying to think what the cost of
Okay,
it really
okay.
is.
so you're applying 270,
Yes, yes.
but it's a fiction presently, because it's based upon future payment obligations coming in the tax.
So
for
you see
15, 16,
270
17.
in parentheses being that it's a minus,
Right.
and you could put a plus 90, 90, and 90.
Yeah, plus 90,
or-
90, 90,
Right.
90, right. So that's why, you know,
If you wanna
I know
justify
it's
it in
on
your
different-
mind. It's on a different page of the
different
budget.
pages
Right,
for
Right.
you.
right.
But it's still a cost.
But you're
It's
gonna-
still a cost, it's still there, and
Right, however, you would get the full 270 in 2014.
understood.
Okay,
And the other thing is the interest we are paying is going to ourselves.
correct.
But, yeah. But still, we still have to collect it in taxes.
True.
Right, it's,
Yep.
and that's where I'm coming from, that no
I
matter what,
understand.
no matter what,
Still comes
the
from people.
expense associated with that project,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's on the capital plan budget, that hike and bike pathway, and we're only talking about the hike and bike, we're not talking about turtle
Right.
tunnels now.
Right.
That expense to the taxpayer, borrowing on the ban, from the 3-year ban for 2014, great budget savings for 2014, but that expense is still 2015, 16, and 17.
Yes.
Right.
And who knows what special projects are awaiting us then, especially after this winter. I mean, how many more other road projects are we gonna be facing in those next
Wow.
2-3 years?
We haven't gotten to that, and this is something else I wanted to talk about tonight, but it doesn't technically get on the capital budget. But we've continued to kick the can down the road, and we've hit the curb with it, is the dirt roads in town. And, you know, we've asked John to do a lot of magic with a road grader, and a road grader only just smooth out the bumps. But there is, there is real rebuilding of those roads that is probably necessary.
For 6 inches of stone on a mile of road is $40,000 per mile. That's just material, that doesn't get it placed, time, trucked, machines to put it down.
40,000 per
40,000
mile
per
for
mile
stone
for
only.
just stone alone,
And how many miles, John?
18,
18 miles of dirt road.
like $660,000.
18 times 40,000?
Mm-hmm.
I got $720,000.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's
And
just
that's
materials.
Just material.
Just materials.
And again, that was based on a discussion that we had with the auditor a couple of years ago, and
Yep.
says that that's really a maintenance item and not a capital item.
We can't put it in the capital because it's not a paved road.
I don't,
Stone.
I disagree with that.
I do
You can
too.
put it there today and it'd be gone tomorrow.
Right.
Still a capital improvement to your infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's gotta have a useful life of 5 years, that's probably why he
Right.
made that comment.
I can guarantee there is gonna be a piece of stone there in 5 years.
Hopefully one left.
At least one, maybe,
A little bit smaller.
Even if pull it out on the back of your truck.
maybe,
What does it cost per mile
to pave them.
yeah.
Oh, don't go there.
What are some
Are you
other
gonna
towns
ask your
doing?
other
The
question?
obvious question, right?
No, I have to talk
Think
to Mr.
about that.
Velardo on that.
Okay.
But my point is that, there are other projects in the offing that certainly need our attention. That we're not gonna see a grant for the dirt roads.
And we haven't even crossed that path at this point in time.
Yeah.
We haven't even discussed that. We haven't discussed operational, needs at this point.
Yeah.
We did minorly last meeting, but not
No,
to the extent.
all right.
So where do we stand then on capital budgets? We really,
Should we plug in the turtle tunnel in I? I propose we plug the turtle tunnel in I into Plan H.
The Turtle Tunnel, don't you mean in Plan H?
Yeah, take the turtle plan from H.
Oh, I'm sorry,
and move
H.
into I.
And put it
You're
in
on
I.
I, yeah. Right, excuse me. What I meant, not what I said.
But G is the 6-month extension on a hike and bike,
Yes,
and plus the carryover?
yes.
And my point with that is not that we don't pursue that, but if we get those things.
If we get a no.
The money is already in place.
Mm-hmm.
We can either pay it early, pay down.
And on G, what would move, as Paul said, the money that I was funding in 2016, he said would actually come to us in 2015. So that other 25% would move back to 2015.
Because we may go right up to budget date and never get these answers.
No, I understand, and,
So we gotta go with what.
but the reason I asked about the other projects,
Mhm.
now, the ban, the 3-year ban, is that only for capital or is it beyond capital?
What do you mean, as to what we could use it for?
Yes, is it only for capital projects?
It was a capital improvement loan from the current fund, is what the auditor said.
What the auditor said, but for John's stone replacement for the dirt roads,
We can
could
borrow.
that expense be under a ban?
Yes, right? We can
Well,
borrow
you
it.
can't borrow money if it's not a capital, you can't borrow money from the bank if
Unless
it's not a capital.
Not a capital
So you
project.
you can't.
Which gets down to the dirt roads.
Right, right, so we basically, is gonna have to be raised through the budget.
Right.
As
Appropriations.
far as I know, that's the only way we're gonna raise that money is to
Let me
up the
understand,
And-
so,
appropriations.
so you can't borrow because the dirt roads aren't considered a
They're not capital.
capital
Correct.
project.
On the capital project.
It's
And remember, Bud
It's O&M for
went
your
through
dirt
this a
roads.
couple years ago with us. And we went around and around, and like John, I completely disagree with it. Bob Holtway before me completely disagreed with it. But
But if
that's,
they were paved, we could.
yeah.
Well, then you'd have to borrow on the ban for something else, and then take whatever other money, something that we weren't gonna borrow on,
Right, Barney, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then use that for the ban.
If you were gonna go out and issue debt for something, yes, if there's a project that we were gonna borrow for.
That we weren't gonna borrow for, now we'd have to borrow, so that free up the money to use for the dirt roads.
And, and my point on this is that as big of a pain in the ass is the hiking bike funding and not knowing 14, 15, 16, and there's certainly a lot of information that may help refine the budget, is I have a feeling that we're gonna be doing ban on other stuff, more significant expense, and I'm leery of putting that on the debt service for this well, making that decision this year, when there's gonna be probably more debt coming down the road.
I don't doubt you're correct. And my point is that the Plan G timing, I think we still continue with that. We try to make that happen. But I would rather have the money in hand before, because if it doesn't work out,
We always have the option to pay it off
we
early.
can pay down that part of that ban.
You know,
early.
and I understand, but, I think that, whether it's a week or 2 weeks, as Paul said, it sounds like that extension going from December 25th, 2014 to any time in 2015 is pretty easy. And just getting that 6-month extension or the 1-week extension gives us the ability of 2 years. And then the point-to-point issue, 50-50, for an engineer, that's pretty optimistic. So, I just throw it.
But
out
is there a
that-
time-
that
is there-
I don't know that we need to commit at this point. It certainly gives Judy another opportunity to have J and K.
Oh, jeez.
But is there, and Deb, is there a timing issue if, great, we can say it goes to the first week of January, and technically it's in 2015. But since we are, be so early in that budget
Well,
cycle.
you'll immediately have to do an ordinance, and then
And
you're
that
gonna
would
have
commit
to
to
put,
it.
exactly.
You are then committed.
Yeah.
That's how that would work.
You can, you have
And
no options.
that's another thing I'm leery at. It'd be one thing if we absolutely knew it was 6 months and we knew it was May. Guess what? May is at the end of, we'll have our budget by May of 15. But if we don't, and
Yeah, then you'd have to commit to it in January, and then you can't change your mind.
and some other things on here is, we are taking a vacation on the fire engine replacement program, which granted, there's no wish list this year. But to not put anything away, again, is like not putting away for an IRA. I would like to see, I wish we could put something in there. It's an I wish.
You might as well take the pavement management plan and the vehicle replacement program right off of here.
Right, because they really aren't anything. They
You're not
don't
saving
represent
any money.
anything.
In
They-
fact, if you use any current fund balance to offset your capital budget,
Mhm.
you should reduce those amounts that you say that we're setting aside for things, because they're not
Yeah,
being set aside for.
so, therefore, I think if we did realize savings after banning on the hike and bike path, that is some savings that can go back into fund balance that may not technically be earmarked for either of those two replacement programs, but we know we'll have it going into the following year.
But and then I would say the vehicle replacement is something that is bondable.
Well, yeah,
And
certainly it
just,
is. Certainly it is.
Identifying the right place for.
But let's also
For
look
loans.
at interest rates and what they're likely to be. I think everybody seems to agree, we feel like we're at the bottom. 3 years from now, when somebody needs that $1 million truck, the rates are gonna be higher. I would rather only fund 40% of a truck at a higher interest rate than,
Well, when we say vehicle replacement, I mean, some of that we put aside has been for other types, for some of John's equipment, for
any of
It's-
those
and-
things.
But
But
I mean,
my point is,
historically, though, we've only borrowed for fire trucks.
no, we did a little bit for John a couple
We
of
did
years ago.
Yeah,
a grader and a backhoe just
Yeah.
last year.
But
But I'm just saying, right here, under the bond anticipation notes, Debbie,
Yep,
you're just saying, okay, I see DPW,
Equipment.
all right, okay, I see it on here,
Yeah,
okay.
that's there.
It's fire truck and DPW, okay.
so,
If you wanna get crazy, we can go out and buy two dump trucks, banned for it, and I'll give you $123,000 back that we have in the current ordinance. I mean, it's just,
yeah,
what we're
Right.
doing is a shell game
yep,
with cash.
yep.
Right.
That's all we're doing. We're taking from here to make this work today. Everything we're doing, everything that Judy has talked about to you for the last month and a half is really a shell game as far as taking from here, taking out of this pocket to pay for this. At the end of the day, you're paying for it somewhere down the road.
Yeah. Plus, we also have to then go to our other pieces of paper here, and we still
Yes.
have to hit our other portions of the budget. Like I said, I think for the purpose of planning, I'd like to put the turtle tunnels
You wanna go with H,
H and the capital plan I.
except H, we're taking out the 16.
So I will make a capital plan J that
Yeah.
incorporates those changes.
And then
Okay,
we,
I got you to J.
but, and I want
It's like
Paul to,
K.
I want Paul to
J
work
for Judy.
for G. I want Paul to be working towards G on the hike and bike path. But I don't wanna find out too late
Yeah.
that we didn't get there.
I agree.
I think that's,
But
The
is
middle
that,
ground.
is that number, the capital number gonna be too low, the grand total gonna be too low? Are we gonna hurt ourselves?
well, that's
Realize
why I
that-
wanna go back and look at these other portions, and then we're gonna circle right back around and see where all these things fit together.
You could always add vehicle replacement back.
But we have to,
Well,
we
here,
have to have a
and
number.
this gets back to Deb's, to the question for Deb is, what does it mean to keep a consistent capital budget? So if we were to drop, by doing the bond anticipation notes, we drop 2014 to under 300.
right, if you're just putting off projects to lower your money, your number this year, you're gonna be funding it next year or the next year, and your capital appropriation's gonna go up. You're just,
It's gonna spike.
you know, you're gonna feel it, you're gonna see your tax rate's gonna jump, and as opposed to just try to be consistent with capital
Although the tax rates,
costs.
I mean, they were still, the tax rates are still supporting that, the payment back of the ban, and they're doing that in 2015, 16, and 17. So, is it really a double hit for those years? By doing the ban, taking the money, applying it in 2014,
When we pay,
and then that's a plus 90, plus 90, plus 90. I
but
mean,
the 90's
as far
gonna
as
be
the
debt
taxpayers.
service, the 90's gonna be debt service,
Right,
okay?
but the impact on the taxpayer
Mm-hmm,
is plus 90, plus 90, plus 90.
correct.
We have the low number here. And I just wondering.
But the
if-
debt
if-
service
if
is
it-
going up
The
that number.
debt service is going
Well,
up on the others, but then, you know, the corollary, or I'm sorry, I guess the way of looking at otherwise, which is that you keep the capital plan for 2014 in that 300 to 400 range.
Well, I think
And
we,
then
we
these
can go
numbers.
back, I think we can go back and look at pavement management, vehicle replacement, and still maybe perhaps make a contribution to those.
Yes,
And I think that's where you would plus up the
right.
capital, which then pays us forward, because then we've created more of a capital fund balance in future years.
Then you have something.
I know it
carried
sounds like
forward.
we're saying, I wanna spend on both sides to save money, but we're emptying out everything to put into one or two projects in 14. And I think the goal is to smooth things out and make pavement management, vehicle replacement, all these, keep at least a little consistent token savings in those areas.
So then
So maybe we don't drive to below 292, or maybe it's actually higher than 292. Maybe it gets to be about 350 by putting another 25 in vehicle replacement and pavement management, something that adds to it. But
So there's just, well, I mean, what we had talked earlier about was, getting rid of that ordinance,
mhm.
right, so that 16 comes out, maybe, Paul's engineering and design inspection drops from 25 to 15, you're looking at 90. And some of these capital fund balance here, capital fund balance there.
It adds up to
capital
about
fund balance
200.
There,
Adds up to
capital
about
fund
200.
balance there. I mean, that's just, you know, you're gonna apply the capital fund balance wherever it's needed.
Yeah.
So-
Well, up to the 200.
Right, up to the.
John, you were around, and Judy, of course, when we started implementing the 5-year lookout for capital funding for equipment, for police cars, for fire trucks, for roads. That was, the whole idea, as the mayor said, was to smooth it out. So
That was
we-
my idea way back
Right.
when.
So we
I
never
first
got a
implemented
spike.
that a little while ago. And we were trying to make it consistent with everything we were trying to
And
do.
we've always been faithful to funding it.
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
We have been, yes.
The problem though is if you use any of that fund balance to offset the capital budget, that totally undermines any of the savings for that program.
Like I said, look at the vehicle replacement, 75 in, 75 out. As Sean said, you might as well just take it off. Because we're simply not adding to it. We don't have a vehicle
Correct.
replacement program this year. So we just need to know that. If we think that that's a good idea, then that's something that this body is supposed to decide, but.
But isn't that a saleable item
What do you
to
mean?
voters?
What?
That we're trying to be proactive in putting money aside each year so you don't get that big hit?
No,
And
that's good budget management. So,
You just have to look at some of our neighboring towns that are going out and borrowing an awful lot of money right now to pay for capital improvements, right?
well, what's Burnsville going after?
Well, that's what I'm saying, you know, it's a huge number over there for the roads.
For the park system.
and again, we're gonna circle around here, because ultimately, we've gotta look at other parts of the budget. And again, we wanna compare that to what our goal was. See if that goal is realistic. But we have to have a number to put in the capital plan, so we can then see how it fits with the other numbers.
Well, what did we start out with? and originally in
Plan A?
Plan A.
I think it was about,
You want me to go back?
I think it was about
Plan C, it was
I
up
think it was
to
about
525.
$4.50.
I got it right here.
Oh,
I got it.
about
I mean,
$4.50.
72 years ago.
Plan
we
C,
started.
Yes.
Plan C was
Oh,
525.
you only go back to C?
Plan D was 448.
Yeah, I don't know how we even got to see.
You know, so I mean, we've really trimmed it down.
Right.
Plan A is right here. Plan A was $740,600.
Okay.
So we've come a long way.
Right, there you go. Okay. Yeah, here it is. I got Plan A here. There we go.
Plan A had little
740.
tiny letters, but it was still Plan A.
740, right.
The letters are getting smaller.
So I think, you know, we have to come up with a number that we can sleep at night, that we feel comfortable with, right? And that-
So in order to do that, maybe we need to better understand some of our other,
Yeah, let's
Portions.
look at the other portions, because again, we can chase our tail on this and try to just,
so I don't think Mr. Farrell needs to sit through.
no, Paul, I think
Rest of
Thank
you,
you, Paul.
does anybody else have any other questions for Paul?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you hear
Enjoy
anything,
the rest
you'll
of your
let me
night.
know.
Let us know.
All right.
Send pizza.
Keep calling every day. Call them every day.
Oh, they'll love that.
Oh, yeah. We
They
have
were never
been.
calling him back.
Yeah, they're
It's
not,
that Farrell guy.
If he puts it on hold,
I'm already on a
he's
list.
on our clock, remember?
They have a special
3
list
hours
we have.
on hold. Oh, well.
Good night, everybody.
Good night,
you.
Paul.
Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here, Paul.
Wait for Mr. Jacobs to come back.
Yep. What is the next thing you wanna talk about?
Well,
so
I'd
I
like
can
to
pull it up?
preface the next thing with a statement. But I'll wait for Larry.
Are you good? Is this the one?
No, we
Okay.
could.
No, I'm just trying to, I just wanna get to the one
Here, Paul.
that we're gonna do next,
Take care, Paul.
It's gonna be the one that has the
that, one,
packet.
the revenue. All right.
Revenue sources, okay.
Right.
The numbers are getting smaller, dude.
I don't even need to look at this anymore, I just have them in my head.
She's got it
Good for you.
memorized. Oh, that's not a good for you, that's a, I feel sorry for
Sad,
you.
right?
When I know what the assessed value of all the houses in Bedminster are off the top of my head without even looking, it's like sad.
One day when we played Bedminster Jeopardy, you'll win.
We did that one time.
Did
We had an employee,
Sure.
like make your own Sunday day during the summer, and we did Bedminster trivia. It was pretty fun.
You might win this year.
Yeah, like spell Copperthwaite Road. But anyway,
This is,
we're on revenue sources. So I just want to preface this with, every time we change a number, be it the capital budget, an operating budget item, or whatever, the budget process, there's so many more pieces to the puzzle that Debbie and I then have to work on and then reach out to the auditor and do. We plug this all into what's called the Reserve for Uncollected Taxes worksheet, and we work on that. We come up, which gives us the amount to be raised by taxation. It all gets plugged into a levy cap workbook, which we must submit with the budget document down to the state. And the levy cap workbook, basically, it takes the amount to be raised by taxes last year, multiplies it by 2%, tells you how much you can increase that budget with the 2% cap restriction, but then it adds the exceptions on, which is for debt service and for capital and for health benefits. Now, my point is, the state wouldn't give you those exceptions if you didn't need them. And I just want, I know I've been directed to put them aside and get to what the amount to be raised by taxes is without the exceptions. And I did it. But I didn't do it till about 3 o'clock this afternoon, and I started on it, well, at the day after our last budget meeting, because it hurts a lot. And we're cutting a lot of things that we need. And a lot of our little safety nets are now gone in order to get to the number that you asked me to get to. So the sheet you're looking at is our revenue sheet. And this tabulates all the revenues that we bring in, or our anticipated revenues. And then at the bottom of the sheet, last time you looked at it, it showed the change in the amount to be raised by taxes. It was at 5.16%. And you all went, ah, it can't be. It has to be at the CPI, which for 2013 was 1.9. Well, I got it to 1.96. That's what you'll see on the bottom there, and you'll see with the note with using capital budget H. But to get there, like I said, Debbie and I had to play with some of these revenues. These revenues, we normally anticipate them lower than we know they'll come in at, knowing that anything above that number
Right.
goes to surplus. So
Right.
we're schooled in our classes, be very, very conservative. Do it way under where you know you're gonna be. Well, we bumped some of them up today, and we're hesitant, but right. The things we changed, was the, dedicated UCC fees from the construction department. We bumped that up a little more.
Where's that?
About third
Okay,
way down,
here, okay.
dedicated UCC fees, it's at $291.
Okay.
All right, last year it was $260. And
That
they-
was anticipated.
Right, you can see they came in at $609, so the difference between $260 and $609 went to
Right.
surplus, and that's why we have a positive
That's the
surplus
only-
number this
That's the
year.
only thing that kept us
That's
from
what
going
saved
negative.
us, and our positive surplus number was only like $27,000 with that $609,000, so.
But, you know, given the 609, you know, and going from 260 to 291 doesn't seem overly aggressive.
No, but
When your surplus regeneration was only 27,000.
when we only got 27,000 out of the whole deal, that's still,
Judy's putting this very nicely, what she's saying. I think everybody on this end of the table would probably agree that what was done to get down to 1.96 is nothing that we would consider a responsible budget.
right.
It's getting you to the number you want to be at.
But it's
But
taking
you're saying it's too
directly
bare
from
bones.
surplus. So
Yeah.
next year, when we sit here and we look at how much surplus did we regenerate,
And it's a negative number.
Right.
these are the reasons why, because this is how
So
it
the
happened.
1.6 million that you see at the top of the page that we use to fund the budget every
Right.
year, okay? If you're not regenerating at least that 1.6 million, you're borrowing it from the school.
Right.
That's,
You're floating it.
that's not
Mhm.
good.
No.
So, like I said, I got you to your 1.9, but it's gonna hurt. The other thing I did do, and I feel a little more comfortable about this change, was you'll see a number, about halfway down where it says contributions, you see Open Space Trust Fund, DPW Labor. That number's $30,000, which is what we, took last year from the Open Space Trust account to offset John's budget. And it is proposed again this year, from the Open Space Committee to do the same. We have those numbers from them, and as long as no one changes our policy, you know, it is to be used for maintenance. We determine that maintenance someone needs to do it, and
Mhm.
it's John's department that's doing it. We're not hiring someone on the outside. As long as you feel that policy still stands, then we're very comfortable with the $30,000 number, because that's, we know we have it. So those are really the only two numbers that we played with.
Mhm.
Now,
What's the open space total right now?
74?
about $74,000 that were generated this year, and we have about $4,000 left from last year.
Okay.
So we're in the $75,000 range, say 75 that
And
we're
the open
at.
space budget is just around that.
Right, and
It's
they
the
put
same
their
number.
budget together, and I think they ended up with about 7,000 left over this year. They did, or $7,000 to $10,000 they had left over in just for anything that went over in the budget. So these are just the revenues, okay? You can see total revenues, and then, you know, we have a total budget and the amount to be raised by taxes on the bottom there. The second page under that is that calculation worksheet that,
Oh, I'm sorry, go back to the
Oh.
first page again, one more question.
sure,
So,
You wanna go through them? So
no,
you
just
understand what they
the,
are?
Just the changes.
the change to interest costs and costs on taxes, that's up 12%, 70 and
Oh,
62.
yes,
How
I'm
do-
sorry, I
do we
changed
do
that, I did change that from 65 to 70,
Or 62 to 70.
yes.
Well, yeah, but your original 2014, she bumped the 62 up to 65, which is,
Right.
was comfortable, but
Right.
now it's
70,
up to
Where,
70.
what makes us, other than last year we came in at 85.9,
Right.
what affects that?
people who pay their taxes late.
Okay.
So we have no guarantee of anything, but I'm
So
only
those
going
are
back
interest-
looking at,
So that is late with interest, we think that.
if you just go back and look at the, look at the,
You know, how do we?
Debbie's delinquent taxes this year were close to the same as the year before, so.
and you can see going back, you know, the history.
57, 60, 71, and you go 8 to 9, which is when
Well, no, you can
things
see
went
what was
forward.
anticipated, and then the next column next to it tells you what we really got that
No,
year.
I understand. But 7 was before the economy fell. 8, 9 is probably your first year that you saw a significant dent in the economy. It went from 60 to 71. Because to get delinquent taxes, you have to miss.
Exactly.
So you figure it's going to lag a year or two from the poor economy. And you see it went from 71 to 75 to 91 or close to 92, and now it's stabilizing about 74, 85. So okay.
But
I just
I have
wasn't
no
sure.
guarantee.
No, there's no guarantee on that.
Clean communities, there were no numbers in 2013, and now there's 20,000.
Yeah, that's just the grant. We didn't receive a grant last year.
Okay.
Actually, maybe the year before, did we get 2 years' worth budgeted
Yes.
in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So historically, the total, I can't read this, it says revenue before taxes,
Right.
right? If you take that and you go all the way from 2007 through here, it looks like we're down 2.82%
Mm-hmm.
in revenue,
Those are non-taxable revenue.
non-taxable revenue.
Which is why several years ago, you remember, when we had the large increase in taxes that made the papers,
Mm-hmm.
that we actually spent less that year
Yeah, our budget was
than we
down.
had the year before. We spent less, but our
Taxable
non-taxable
revenue.
revenue dropped so dramatic that we had to make up for it. And that was why that was.
Yeah, that was the
Even though we
34,
spent
the
less.
3462, which is more than we're getting this year.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because we're getting 3412,
Mhm.
3,412,000.
Where the year that was tough, 2012, we were at 3,462,000.
Yep. Down from,
38,
yep. Yeah.
38,
Down
4,
350,000.
39, 37. So this is the lowest it's been since
Yes.
2007
Yeah.
with it, with revenue.
With the changes that Debbie and I made today.
Yep.
So when people ask you why, that's
Mhm.
a big reason.
Yep.
Because the only thing left is taxes to fund the budget. The second page is just, this is the calculation sheet that I have to prepare for the auditor and for the budget that goes to the state, where you plug in all the factors, which includes the school. The top line is our number, the school anticipating a 2% increase, the
Mhm.
county anticipating a 2% increase. The open space tax, it's a set calculation, so that is the number. And then we plug in the revenues that were just from the previous page. And it gives you the various, a little more calculation on that page, and it shows you what the reserve for uncollected taxes, and I just then, you'll see how I calculated out the tax rate for the various things. You'll see the open space tax, 0.15,
Mhm.
the library tax is 0.358, and on this particular one, our tax is 0.2703.
Well, you know how the other municipalities in the state are getting around this. They're going out, they're moving stuff outside the cap where they can, and they're borrowing. They're just borrowing. They're putting it on the township credit card. That's how they're doing it. There's no other way, other than raising taxes, right? But it looks okay because it's outside the cap.
Right, but it's still,
On the tax bill.
it is.
The taxpayer still
But
sees
you're
it.
given those tools, the toolbox, as we all remember,
Mhm.
that's part of the toolbox that you can exempt those items from your budget.
But it still shows up on the tax bill.
Yes. Exactly.
And that's what we were concerned
And-
about.
and I
We
understand that,
were
but
concerned with what's
again,
on the tax bill.
As a result, I cut $230,000 from this budget.
Operating budget.
Yes. And that's a lot
So,
of money.
this number here is different than the operating budget we discussed previously.
Yeah, the operating budget is on the bottom of that packet that, in your hand.
Right.
And the totals on the last page of that budget is, I say about $200,000 less because I increased some of the revenues by about $30,000, so. Yeah,
And that was just
200,000.
on the construction. So 30,000.
It was 10,000 in construction,
Well,
5,000
30,000
in interest and costs, and,
It was 30 on construction. 31.
30 on open space.
well, I had some, I had
Yeah,
some,
dedicated
I had
UCC
10 in
fees.
open space.
Say 20.
So that's 20 in open space,
It's 31.
10 in construction, that's 30, and
It's 10?
5,
No, it went from 260 to 290.
no, I had it in a 281
You did that one.
previously.
Oh, okay.
You
So
did that one
for
right.
this exercise, I increased it another 35,000. So I still had it, our operations number, I decreased it by $200,000.
Which again, ultimately, if we don't use and spend all that money, goes to
Take one and
surplus.
pass it around. Keep one and pass it down. This is the list of what I cut.
With capital budget F.
In other words, when we last talked, that's where we were.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the changes to the capital budget and everything else that I made, it got to the amount to be raised by taxes increased. I was asked to get to 1.9.
Okay, well,
And a
What-
lot of the
so
things
it-
on this list are hurting.
So adjustment to anticipated revenue, that is the increase that we just talked about.
Right, to 35,770, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And what are the major impacts
Yeah,
on
we're-
our services?
The things,
basically for
the things that hurt the most,
For the residents?
legal services, I cut 50,000, that's a little scary, cause if and when, in November, we do need to transfer to John for snow, to the police for overtime, for some other emergency, historically, I'll go to legal, cause normally we have some cushion in there. Police OT, the lieutenant and the chief came to you at the last meeting to talk about a proposal they had for an additional officer using their overtime monies,
Savings.
and I just took 60,000 of that 75,000 that they had. So, you know,
You have police OT in there twice?
yes, 'cause I took 60 and then I took more.
I think probably the scariest part about this list is I don't know that you could count on having the $1.6 million in surplus to use in next year's budget.
Right,
With all these cuts, that's the big.
yeah, you're,
What's
you're
the-
not
These
gonna,
are things that are,
what's adjustment to
we'll get through the
police
year.
SW?
Salary and wage.
well,
but you won't have any to apply till next year.
that's an estimate, 'cause I don't have a time frame, but, as we know, Chief Usry has told us he's leaving. And, with him leaving and changing some people around and potentially bringing in a new officer at a starting rate, it does save us. You would think, ooh, you know, but you don't bank his whole salary, 'cause you still have a new chief to pay, you have a new you know, there's some movement in the department and you have to pay all those things. So the savings is only really about $26,000.
Yeah, there'll be stuff moving up, there'll be stuff moving in. You may have somebody at the bottom, but they're gonna have to be outfitted and trained.
So, and that's an estimate depending on timing. I don't know when these things would happen or go into effect. I was figuring April-ish, but
But that's that's just a fact. I mean, with the chief,
some of these things are gonna happen.
I mean, I think it's unfair to say that is, a subtraction or to work against it. I mean, that's just a fact. The chief is retiring, and we're replacing.
There'll be some.
And
There
making
will be some
adjustments.
savings there, and that's probably a good one. But some of these others
Right.
are a little dangerous.
The master plan, the $5,000, because they don't have to,
Well,
I
it-
leave it in there, but this is not the year that we have to do it, but I leave it in there as just a
placeholder.
placeholder in case we need 5 something for something. I have a little pocket of money that I can use for something in November if we need to transfer.
And you know what, I understand this, I know we had this issue before, which is, whether legal services should be a piggy bank for other expenses. And, I think there should be they should reflect, to the extent we can, anticipated
And normally I
expenses.
would have left it where it was and put some additional funding in my special projects line. My special projects line last year was 140,000, this year it's just 100. And I hope I can leave it there.
Well, I would suggest if we're gonna cut the legal line for any reason, it be to increase John's snow line.
Well, it's not even snow, it's just,
It's
Snow and
just-
roads.
Just be John's line.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, road maintenance.
But, Deb, it should not be that we're adjusting legal services for something else. We're adjusting legal services because that's the accurate anticipation based upon today's information as to what those legal services numbers should be.
But how do we
Right.
know? It's a crystal ball.
But
It's not, it's more than that. It's not a crystal ball. It's, we can project, we know what's coming down the road on certain disputed issues. We can see, is that gonna happen in 14, is that 15, is that 16? And so, it's really, it's an educated, estimate. So it's not just a crystal ball or the magic, whatever you call the magic,
8 ball.
magic 8 ball, exactly.
But there is a requirement to bring in a fund balance into the following year. Now, I wish it didn't work this way. I wish it was just clean and you didn't, it seems silly to pad your budget so that you have money to start the following year with, but you end up having to do that anyway.
There's only a certain number of ways to generate surplus.
Right.
Okay, appropriations is one way, revenues is another way, and miscellaneous revenue that comes into the town for various reasons is a third way. And, we just can't go out and solicit for, donate to our surplus, we've gotta create it.
Well, when we were at the last meeting, Mayor, we went around the room and everybody said, let's try to target, from an aspirational standpoint, that 2%, the CPI, which, I think is always a good goal. But, if we don't hit it directly in the center of the target, I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, we've taken it down, in this case, substantially from, our first budget meeting. So, I don't think it's set in stone that it's gotta be the 1.9 or it's gotta be the 2. But, we've come a long way from that, what was it, 5+?
5.16.
5.16. So we gotta find a comfort level that it just may not be 1.9, that's, right on the button.
So while you're pondering this, there's 2 last pages. 3, I'm
Do they have
sorry.
numbers
No,
or letters?
no.
No?
One is, Sean actually gave this to me. This is, all the tax rates in Somerset County. There's a big chart. Not looking at the column to the far right, where it has the effective overall rate, we're still pretty low in that column. Second only to Far Hills. But if you look at just the municipal tax rate, which is right in the middle of the page, Bedminster is pretty darn low. Now, we're higher than, say, a Bedminster Township or Bridgewater, but
if you look
both
at
of those-
if you look at Bernardsville, Far Hills, and Peapack compared to Bedminster, which is, typically the towns we're compared to, we're down there. We've got
Yeah, Bernards is a scale. You got the, it's 3 times the size of us, right? Or twice the size of us.
and then, okay, we're compared to Far Hills, but overall, their municipal rate is 0.484.
So a bigger portion of their 1.25 is paid
Because they don't have any commercial.
by the residents on the municipal. Even though their overall effective rate is low, a bigger portion is going towards the municipality. Where we can say that that's not the case in Bedminster. Right?
So just for reference, tells you where we are.
That's useful. It's very
This
useful.
larger sheet that has impact on the taxpayer, we went over this a little bit at the last meeting. I just added in the 2 goals that you gave me. So you'll see 2010 through 2013, where we came in at. In the 2014 column, 2.88% is where we started in the beginning with capital plan A and everything else. The assessments did go up, and that's where we would have been with the tax rate, a change of $132 on the average taxpayer for the municipal portion of the taxes. The 2.34 and the 1.93 are some of the other budgets we considered. The 1.93 was with capital plan F, and it was where we were at the last meeting.
And where we were at the last meeting, or where we were with after you?
No, this was with
made
capital
these
plan
changes?
F.
Okay.
Is it gave us the 1.93%. These other 2 columns, the amount to be raised by taxes, are the 2 goals he gave me. If you look at both of them, our actual municipal rate is less than what it was in 2013. It's going down.
Now, the amount to be raised by taxes, you have 2% and 1.96. That incorporates which one of the appropriation increases? I mean, because you got this right over here. This is the appropriation increase, right? So we're assuming which one here?
Well, wait a minute.
What did you incorporate into the amount to be raised by taxes as far as the capital goes, so the appropriations?
Wait a minute. This sheet that capital budget H with the 1.96% increase. The budget, our operating budget, went up 0.43%. If you look at this last sheet in your packet, the last page. In order to get to the 1.96% amount to be raised by taxes increase, our operating budget only went up $41,000 on a $10.5 million budget, $41,000.
And that swallowed up large increases in healthcare, insurance costs,
Pension.
Pension.
pensions, things that we don't have control over. So
Plus
that
the
means while
gasoline.
those went up, other things went down. So I'll set it.
the last column here is if we, and I mentioned this last time, if we had no increase in our budget at all, we left our budget exactly the same as last year, but considering that our assessments went up, the amount that the taxpayer would pay would still go up $92.97 to the average taxpayer for the average home, if we left everything exactly the same.
Because of the,
Increased
Because of the
assessments.
increased assessments. So with the two budget goals that you put before me, the 1.96 and the 2% that I put together, we're actually coming in below that at $85.86. Again,
So,
really,
so what you're saying
But-
is,
It really
you're saying,
hurts.
so
but
actually.
people don't bank their, people don't bank their assessment on their house. When your house goes up another $5,000 in value, nobody's handing you a check to say, hey, you get a more valuable house.
No, but
I know our
think-
superintendent tried to sell that the other night at the Board of Ed meeting.
No, but I think what Judy's saying is that, okay, if we're looking at the amount to be raised by taxes, right?
which we kind of
Okay,
focused
so
on at the last
let's
meeting.
take the aspirational goal out of it and say, forget about whether it's 1.93, 2%, 1.96. If we charged you with saying, Judy, we want to keep our tax rate the same. So the increase is only going to be as a result of the assessments. Then we come to the 92.
It's still going up $93.
Right, okay.
Yeah, 'cause
So,
the-
so we're going through all these machinations right now to lower it to 85. Where we could just say, we're gonna keep the tax rate exactly the same, that's the arena we're gonna deal in, and everybody goes up $93. Without trying to reach a 2% or a
Yes.
CPI or something else.
Right, it's gonna go up that anyway, just because of the average assessment.
I mean, to me,
Some more,
to me,
some
to
less.
me, that makes more sense, is to say, okay, we didn't raise the tax, we didn't change the tax rate. It's the exact same thing from year over year. Right? So the only increase, how we appropriate, how we got more money, how we got more revenue, how we got more taxes, is because the value of the properties went up. Pure and simple, right? But yet our budget only went up, as you said, 0.43.
But we really didn't get more taxes, it's just distributed differently.
Yeah,
More on the
she's just
residential
using the
side.
average,
Right.
but, ultimately, I don't much believe in chasing the rate, because we don't have control over how the houses are assessed. And again, somebody says your house goes up $5,000 or $10,000, unless you decide to sell it, and that actually holds true, nobody's giving you any extra money because your house went up.
But I mean, the average taxpayer, and I think we get, they
It's
pull up their
nice
tax
because
bill.
you can pull out a rate and you can hold up a piece of paper and say, hey, look, the rate didn't change. But all we truly have control over is spending and the levy. I really think the levy is our grade.
But we can't, but I guess what I'm saying is.
And even the levy, we don't have complete
If we
control
do,
over.
if we do nothing, if we don't raise an extra penny in the budget, okay? We don't change the capital, we don't spend any more money, we don't spend any less.
Leave our
alright?
budget exactly the same.
Everything stays the same, the average taxpayer will see their tax bill go up. Residential, $93.
Some will go up, some will go down, but that's an average.
That's the average, so if we do
But we
nothing-
can't freeze either, because remember, even with this extremely tight budget,
Mhm.
we're spending $41,000 over 10 million.
Right,
And
but when
and
But when the taxpayer picks up their bill, under the scenario I just said, they say, okay, my taxes went up $93, if they have the average home, if they have twice the average home.
If our
It's
budget
100
stays
it's
the same.
180, right?
Mhm.
So I'm just saying, we're concerned about the impact of the taxpayer. The taxpayer doesn't really understand the levy, doesn't understand what's off the capital budget, doesn't
Right.
understand surplus.
I don't understand that way of backing off a no tax rate change. What are you basing the appropriations on for no tax? I mean, that's just a calculation.
It's just a calculation.
Yeah, that's
If I
just
left
their-
our appropriations
That's just their,
exactly the
yeah,
same.
this
comparison.
is,
I'm just trying to
that
compare.
doesn't mean, this doesn't mean anything.
No,
It's just a comparison.
Yeah.
That's not based on a real budget.
No, it's not. That's
But,
just,
but here's the real budget, so we're saying just by doing this, you're gonna be bringing more in than we're attempting to budget. This is less than
Yeah,
this.
yeah, but
You
this, that is just for an illustration, that's just for comparison
Right.
purposes.
Just to
That's-
show you.
That's,
Which is
I
why
mean,
we have
this-
a cap on
this is-
expenditures.
That's real money though.
no, it's not. It's not. That's just taking the rate that was applied last year, based upon all the appropriations and all the,
And that's
and
what
the
we,
levy.
and that's what we would.
And if you
and
just,
that's what we
and
would
if
collect.
you just applied that
Right.
against our, properties, that's what you would
Because
generate.
right, because.
That's what you would generate.
Yeah, no,
But
this
it's
would
not
go
ba-
up. This would
it's
go
not
up.
based
This-
on
this-
appropriations, it's just math.
Okay,
Right.
but then that, you're backing into this number, this goes up then appropriately,
Oh,
proportionally.
All right, I would like to get rid of that.
Yeah, okay,
Because all that
that was just-
is a justification,
Right.
a comparison. Look
all I did.
how great we're doing.
No, I'm not
if we
saying
look
that.
at that.
I'm not saying that.
It's- but it's not real.
It's not real.
And there's no, and the state did not
See,
provide
I
us a rate.
disagree, I disagree, because that number backs you into this one. The amount that you have to raise by taxes. There's an equivalency there, I think.
That was
Greg,
just,
you having fun
You
yet?
can keep it on your paper and you can get it off your paper.
that was
You
just,
keep it on yours and you
Yeah.
can take it off yours.
all right, well, wait a minute, I have one last thing I really need to get to.
Yes, let's get to this.
You have something else?
One last thing.
Let's
What,
look at
is it a chart?
Yes,
Oh, good.
I haven't seen any charts yet tonight.
It's interesting,
Okay.
interesting stuff.
so, in all these budget numbers, one thing we haven't talked about is what we're gonna do for the employees.
Where are we now?
Non-union employees,
Non-union.
non-union employees.
Okay. There you
We are still discussing with the PBA as to their contract, not yet determined. In the numbers presented so far, there has been a 2% raise for salaries for all the non-union employees. Okay.
In this.
In the numbers you have, there is
Okay.
2% built in.
Mhm.
We haven't talked about it, but it is there. Now, you can say, well, okay, what does 2% give them? So what I did on this chart, you'll see, looking at the bolded box at the bottom, you have employee A who has a family plan, medical, and makes 50,000, and employee B makes 75,000, employee C makes 100,000. And this year, we're in our 4th year, as of July 1st, for our contributions, which is the highest level. So you'll see, what that 50,000, 75, and $100,000 employee are gonna pay in their health, towards their health care, their contribution. They're gonna pay either 12, 23, or 32% of the premium. They're gonna pay 6.95% of their salary to the pension. PERS is our pension plan. 7.65% in FICA, which is Medicare and Social Security. And the 2% raise that they're gonna get is either gonna be $1,000, $1,500, or $2,000, and you'll see that where they end up. The $50,000 employee is gonna bring home $40,233, and he got a 2% raise, and look at what he made last year. He made $41,507. So he's actually gonna bring home less. Each of the employees will be bringing home less this year, even with the 2% raise. So the raise doesn't even keep them where they were.
What's the end percentage?
But this is the last year that you're gonna,
How much less than the 50%?
this is the last year that you'll have the increase on the health, correct?
Of the premium, but the premium will still go up.
It'll still be a percentage, so as healthcare costs continue to go up,
Right.
and nobody
Right.
believes
So
they
it's-
won't do anything other
So
than
it's
that.
not gonna, so for
that
the
they're-
$100,000 employee, it's gonna remain at 32%, but 32%
Of a
of a
bigger
bigger
number.
number each year.
But the sticker shock for the employees in the last couple of years has been because the percentage was jumping up so high, right? Along with the premiums. So you were getting it,
Right.
double.
Twice a year, so you get it first in January when the premium goes up, and then July 1st when your next
When your
step kicks
percentage
in.
goes up.
So the only good news is that the steps are stopping, at least
For now.
right for now, until the state does
Decides
something
their
else.
next thing. So, you know,
But what Steve is saying is, correct me if I'm wrong, that as insurance premiums continue to rise, there's no guarantee that that number continues to drop. take home. For salaries stay
No,
flat.
no, I'm saying it probably will, because generally, I think the health care cost increases have outpaced
Right,
the 2%.
Have been double
right, so
digit.
that
So chances are,
Right.
if salaries stayed flat,
then
Take home.
take home drops.
Drops
And
even
it has.
more.
It
Well, the
drops.
two-
Well, even,
2%.
no, this is even considering that we've gotten a 2% raise last year, and we got a 1.5% raise the year before.
Now, a continuing of the 2% raise would mitigate, but it's not a dollar for dollar.
But it helps,
Yeah.
But it doesn't-
certainly, but it doesn't offset.
Well, I will say something that won't be wildly popular around one end of this table, but to try to chase a raise to mitigate the offset in the healthcare costs is kind of defeating the goal of
True,
it.
but I'm,
I absolutely
but
understand.
you think, I'm getting
the
a raise,
pain.
oh, I'm excited, and then you look, you're really not getting a raise.
You know, it ends up being, well, less of a cut.
So the employee who was bringing home 44,925 back in 2010,
Mhm.
who didn't get a raise in 2011, got a 1.5% raise in 2012, got a 2% raise in 13, and gets a 2% raise in 2014,
Mhm.
is now only bringing home $40,000.
And that's the dilemma that's facing everybody in America, is that
Mhm.
wages are being pegged to
Stagnant.
inflation, but healthcare costs are wild,
Yep.
are nowhere near inflation.
And I'm not telling anything that you're not
Mhm.
probably experiencing yourself, but I'm just reminding you
No.
that we're experiencing that same.
I think it's important for us to know, and it's,
Well, that's the same in the private sector too, you know, I think the same phenomenon is that the actual take-home is less as the costs for employees and their healthcare costs are going higher.
is there a line item in this on the health
Unfortunately, because
insurance,
you lose the benefit
or is it all just
guarantee.
factored in?
I have it all
Because
lumped
they leave the
together,
workforce
that's
early.
healthcare plus, dental
Losing
plus,
money.
eye
But
doctor.
there's no one line in it, they're all
No.
into others.
That's not a detailed list, if you want a detailed list.
And the only reason I say that is because it would, all I'm trying to do is get an idea of how the offsets have worked. In other words, in that more of the employees are making or then there's a
I
greater
get it.
contribution, how much are we saving out of that?
Yeah.
In other words,
Yeah, right,
that might also illustrate it.
so.
is there just a bulk line item for salary and wages in the,
No, they're for
Operating
each
budget?
department.
It's
You-
on that, I can give you a sheet. Here is,
of course you can.
Like this is DPW. And this is really reflective of a new employee, which was needed.
here's just the health insurance. This is 2013, 12, and 11.
So even with the givebacks,
It still goes up.
you can see it went from 268,000, 274,000, 281,000, 287,000. So we're looking at
The increases
increases
are not-
every year, despite the fact that a much higher percentage has been taken from the employee. So that's also important to know because, you know, you could have a perception that we're saving a disproportionate amount of money off of their backs, too. If our real costs were going down, while their givebacks were going up,
But the real costs are.
but our real
Everything's-
costs are still
everything's
going
going
up. They're going up a little less steeply than they would have without the
But,
givebacks.
but even their givebacks can't keep pace.
Right.
With the acceleration of the cost.
That's correct.
That's the
And
thing.
the lack of
As much as it
revenue
hurts
that's
Lack of
you,
revenue.
as much as it hurts you as the employee, it's not keeping pace. Even with all those giveback, with 30%, you know, of the premium being paid.
Which means there's no great answer. There's nothing that's gonna make anybody feel better.
And that's all I have.
Come on, one more chart.
Yeah, one
Jane.
more chart, you gotta have
One more
something.
chart, that's what
I have
one more
plenty of
chart.
charts.
Amount of cookies consumed
Yes.
over a budget meeting,
So far, 62.
has it gone up or gone down?
Way up,
Sugar consumed versus,
yes. Drew's always afraid when I come home.
All right, well,
Sugar.
I guess my question was, all right, if we don't think.
Oh, you're back to the
No, my
Don't
question,
try.
my question is simple, this is what I was trying to get at, okay. If we don't think the 1.96, the aspirational goal, or the 1 point, whatever it was, or 2%.
Remember that I
is-
told you that those
is-
two
is-
goals hurt.
Okay, it's.
We
it's-
don't wanna
okay,
do that.
Okay, they're not realistic, okay? What my question is, if we use this number.
Which one?
Oh, you
No,
went back
if
to,
we went-
you
if we-
went
no,
back
no,
to the
let
tax
me-
sheet.
let me- If we use this number, what does it change this percentage? It's gonna go up, but what does it do? If we use if we use this number, what is it, what does it do?
So,
to this
okay, let
number?
me see if I understand what you're trying to say.
Right,
The increase of, this is more than, it's
Yeah.
under this, it's under the 1.93% appropriation, so what number, probably around 1.85, which was one of my proposals at one time, would give you that increase of $93.
1.85.
For this is the amount to be raised by taxes.
Right,
This is an appropriations increase.
right, okay.
Different.
Right,
So what am I gonna, this is leaving our appropriations the same, but things have changed.
okay,
Things have changed.
right.
So if we wanted to give the taxpayer just a $93 increase, what would our budget be?
It's
I
gonna
don't
be-
know, I
it's-
could
I
back
know-
into
I
it,
know,
it's
it's
somewhere
gonna
in
be- it's gonna
between.
be in
So it's
here.
probably gonna be about a 1.85%.
Appropriations increase.
Right.
And then if it's a so say it's a 1.85 appropriate.
I'm just saying off the
All right,
top of
okay,
my
all right,
head,
it's gonna be
but-
somewhere between the 2.34, it's gonna be below the 1.93, all right? So the amount to be raised by taxes is what then?
It's probably gonna be like 2.1,
All right, that's what I'm asking.
2.2.
That's what I'm asking, see? That's how we got there then. We use this number, it drops this number and raises that number. And we're,
It'd be
we're.
like around a
And it's on the
2.2.
ballpark.
It'd be like,
2.1.
so we're not exactly on the bullseye, like I said, but we're close.
Judy, how much did you
2.2.
cut what is the total here that you cut this budget by to get to here?
Approximately 200,000.
200,000?
Which is the number we came up with last meeting.
Right.
That would have gotten us.
So that number goes down a little bit once you get to here.
Yeah, and
I'm just using this as a base number to decrease the appropriations and yet increase the percent amount to be raised by taxes. So you said, so I'd like to know what that comes out to. You said maybe 2.1, 2.2.
2.2.
Okay. I mean, if we all thought we could live with 2, I think we can live with 2.2 or something close to it, right?
Pretty darn close.
And the 5.18 that we talked about last time around, or earlier in
Yes.
the session.
That was it.
That was 5.18 was legal within the bounds of the state law of the 2% cap. When you considered all the things that we
Yes,
didn't have
yes.
to do,
5.16 was using,
it was legal.
With the exceptions.
You
Using-
With all the
using
exceptions.
exceptions,
With
yeah.
using exceptions.
So in this case, we're not using the exceptions. We're
Right.
not using the tools in the toolkit, so to
Well,
speak.
It's the difference between saying we met a 2%
We were-
cap
we
and
were-
everybody waving around, I got a 7% tax increase. What the hell?
Right.
Sorry.
probably
That's
comes
what I
in,
said.
yeah, about 1.84%, so it's gonna end up overall about 2.1 or 2.2.
Okay.
1.84 is what I had. But this one, yeah, was
Just to clarify what you just
5.16.
said, those bonuses don't go towards your pension.
I know,
Mm-hmm.
I know, I'm just looking at what we have done in the past
Mhm.
years as laid out here. Bonus 2.5, bonus 2.5, raise 1.5, raise 2.0.
Judy, how many years did we not get anything?
3, I
Three?
think.
Okay.
No
3
bonus
if I
and-
remember.
No bonus and no raise?
No, you got
thought
Oh, there
there
was
was
a
a bonus.
bonus.
You got the
Yeah,
bonus.
never
Those
mind, you're
provisions.
right.
You got the bonus.
You're correct,
You
right.
got the
Yeah.
bonus.
2009, there was no raise, there was a bonus, it was, I don't think it was 2, it was not 2.5. It might have been 2.
It was 2.
And how was the bonus paid out?
Year end.
It was a
Year
lump
end.
sum at the end of the year.
So for 2011, that was paid at the end of 2011.
Right.
Right.
And it was also looking at fund balance. In other words, if it wasn't guaranteed, so if we got to the end of the year and we had a Sandy or something that was a budget buster, it was on the bubble.
The 2.5% ended up equating to approximately $40,000.
Right.
And if we had a lot of transfers and we were falling short in a lot of places, there was not going to be any.
But in each of those years, the employees did a good job in managing the budget they were given. And we had,
And the problem is that we're cutting this $200,000 and you're not
That's not gonna
allowing
be
us
possible.
to
Yeah.
manage
So,
this.
for example,
no,
you came back from a school board meeting and said,
Mhm.
wow, they did this big transfer, their first chance they got. November 1st this year, we didn't do any transfers. I
Right.
think we did a $3,000 transfer for some vehicle maintenance that the police did from this pocket to this pocket. It
No.
was within their own
School
budget.
board did $425,000
I'm
in
telling you, with
transfers
this
last
budget
month.
come November, we'll be waiting to do a transfer, cause we'll be short in a lot of places.
So, if the magic number's not 2, and it's not 5 something, it's somewhere else, right?
So, where are we? We are required to introduce a budget by law.
April.
That's adopted. It has to be introduced March 17th. I have one more budget scheduled. We could include another session or two if you wish. Or, as we have sometimes done in the past, kind of at this point, maybe one more meeting, is we get a consensus from the committee as to where you'd like to be with a rate, a number,
Mhm.
some direction. And then Debbie Stern, myself, the mayor, maybe one other township committee person, maybe the auditor, finalize it.
Yep. No, I think right now what we need to do is take all this, digest it, look at it. We also have one member that's not here.
Yeah.
She deserves to see this and opine on it.
Did she
And
indicate she was, at one
Yes.
point
she
said
thought she might be able to
yeah,
get
she
the
might be able
train
to get
back
here
tonight,
late.
but-
She was gonna text me if she could get here,
Yeah,
but
but,
I didn't.
we should fill her in on all this, and, yes, I'd like to see us all come back and weigh in.
If our next meeting is not until Monday, March 10th, which is 2 weeks from tonight.
How about if we do that? How
I'd
much is
rather-
on next Monday's agenda?
At our township meeting,
Yeah,
I
I know that's a week
Yeah.
off.
don't
Heck
have,
knows.
as of this time, the folder is empty.
Would you want to,
do that.
schedule another budget meeting, or do you want to incorporate that?
We could make it a budget session, and any resolutions, bill lists, that's kinds of things could incorporate it as we've done in the past.
That's a good idea.
We could start in the big room and adjourn to this room, because I think it's more comfortable to,
Yeah.
laying out
Well,
stuff
yeah.
and
Last year, didn't we
everything.
do we had a Saturday session, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Mm-hmm.
That's possible.
And then it's
too.
fresh in
Yearning
our
for
mind.
this Saturday?
Yeah, because it's fresh now.
Easier for me.
We have met, like, we can meet 2 hours from now.
No, it isn't actually. It isn't.
Well, we're hoping that maybe Paul can get back to us before.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
could throw in a Saturday meeting, or we could have it
I'm
next
fine
Monday.
with a Saturday meeting if you want to throw one in. Saturday morning, I'm fine with that.
Mhm.
Issue and.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons Craig is here, maybe we could have a little
Yeah.
meeting after.
Wanna-
the meeting.
You want to
think-
schedule one for the 8th, Saturday morning?
I don't think I can make the 8th. What about, what's the Saturday? You can't notice
Saturday,
it?
oh, the Saturday, I don't think you can notice it fast enough.
Yeah, I can notice
Okay.
it tomorrow.
Who's changing?
I'm old school, yeah. You can write notes with all this good stuff.
2 paper calendars.
I'm good for the 1st, the 8th, or early or late Monday.
If I noticed it tomorrow, it will be in the paper Thursday, we could have a meeting, on, Saturday.
Saturday morning?
Mhm.
The first?
Mhm. Or we can have it Monday night, whatever you wanna do.
I'm fine either way.
Monday will be a marathon, but I suspect that,
You remember, nothing good ever comes after
Do you think
10
Carolyn can make it
o'clock.
Saturday?
yeah, see, that's another thing, we don't know if she'll be able to make it,
On Saturday, you mean?
right.
What do you have to notice by?
Can you text her? Can we text her and say, maybe?
Judy, what do you have to notice
She's on the
by?
train, she'll probably be
I would
happy to
put
get
it
a
out
text.
tomorrow, it would be in Thursday's paper, I mean, I have to have 48 hours.
Want me to text her? And see if she's around for the 8th?
No, no.
For the first.
First, rather, excuse me. Okay. I'm gonna do that.
If we had it Saturday and then we had something quick to follow up on or tie up in a
We
bow,
could
we
do
could
that
do it
Monday night.
Monday, and
Yep, mhm.
then the 10th would just be,
Alright, let's go, let's at least try Saturday.
She texts us, right?
I think so.
Yeah, she's got it.
I think she was taking the train,
Yeah, she was on the train.
so she'll be happy to get that.
9 o'clock?
9, 10,
9.
9:30?
9.
Usually do them 9 to 12 and, or less.
Yeah, that's great. 1 o'clock. Why not?
What time am I telling her?
9.
9.
This Saturday at 9 AM.
She might think it's a joke.
Well,
Supposed to
this,
snow
and
Saturday?
this is the first time we've talked about a non-union salary raise.
Yes, we have.
So I think we all need to think about that, and certainly, you know, we need to from Carolyn, who's not here
And
as well.
I'll just throw it out there, each quarter percent is $4,500. Not a lot.
Alright. Let's move to public comments. We have a member of the public here that would wish to opine over what he has seen tonight, considering there's one. I will take yes or no.
Just a question.
Sure.
Would the effects of Obamacare? if
And,
it's-
and,
if
and
it's
just say your name, I know you.
Sure. Basil Scapertis, 19 Steeplechase Court.
Thank you, sir.
Do you think in terms of healthcare costs for employees, would the implementation of Obamacare affect that, maybe reduce cost?
I don't think so.
We could probably, we'd ask that question, Sean, when you were on the, couple of the meetings that we had with the HIF. To be honest, they really don't know the impact. It's very hard for them to ask, because so much of it is being implemented over a period of time, and with the changing of the mandates, it's really difficult to predict. So we have nothing reliable
Right,
as
we
far as
really
the
didn't get
budget
a
goes.
concrete answer on that.
It's a guessing game.
Okay, thank you. Around the room, Township Committee comments, Ms. Santucci.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I just wanna thank everybody for coming tonight. This is our 6th meeting.
This was
I
number
think-
5.
I know everybody's working really hard.
It might seem like 6.
Number 5, it does.
We did have 11 one year.
It does. It does. But thank
We
you
did.
for coming and
Then we had the
helping
school
us.
bus.
And I know you're doing a lot of work behind the scenes, so thank you. Thank you, John.
Sure.
That's all, Mayor.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Payne.
Thank you, Judy.
When we're speaking of budgets, just real fast, I got something in the mail on my email for the app, my Bedminster app, and BBA is gonna go for half. If the town is gonna have to make a decision at some point, if they're gonna split the cost with the BBA, or I will try to go out and find some other source for that. You know, some other person who wants to co-sponsor it. So we have to make a determination. I don't think I need it
Yeah,
tonight.
we didn't talk about that, but
It's $250, but if the town wants to participate, or I'll try to find another source. Cause I would like to see the app stay, you know, pertinent. I think it was, once it refreshes and we get it, to where we want it, I think it's gonna be a great tool.
Do you
so.
think they're gonna do any development for $499, or will they just kinda keep it this way it is?
They'll
That
tr-
seems like a very little money to do any improvements to it.
Well, then they go and they use that same application and they try to sell it to other, other municipalities or other associations or whatever, and then the only thing they're changing is the content.
Did he come up with any, iTunes figures? How many people have downloaded it? How many there've been?
I asked,
Because that was something we were asking
I didn't get,
for, too.
I didn't get back on that. I mean, the only thing that he had told me was that he was getting 25 hits on it a day with virtually little advertising or marketing about it, just the people that happen to know about it and utilize it now, so. But I don't have to let him know tonight, maybe Monday.
Mr. Jacobs? No, I have it on mine.
Well, you have the
It's a
iPhone.
Mac thing. It's an
Well, yeah, it's
Apple
a,
thing.
it's a app with Apple, but it's a HTML
Can you help me?
web application.
Maybe it's in the calendar.
It's in the calendar.
No comments.
Okay. I have nothing further this evening. Again, thank you. This is not fun, but it's necessary. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Second.
Thanks.
Okay.
Lieutenant Meyer, if you could indulge me and Mr. Jacobs, we want to talk some continuity with you as a subcommittee.
We got to keep the cookies. Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Sean.
Thanks,
Of course, Sean. The cookies are for, take them, put them out for the
Good job.
kitchen.
Oh, the staff will devour that for breakfast.
Good job. Cookies.
We're very healthy.
Yeah, we're such health-minded people here. I have to try one of
Cookies,
these.
sugar intake per budget meeting. That's the graph.
I think we
wanna
went
see.
down this session. I only have 2.
I've steered
I'm gonna
clear.
turn off the tape and I'll be right back. Can I join you?
Yes,
Okay.
I've steered clear tonight. But that doesn't count my stop through the Wendy's drive-through, so I think
Oh,
that
Wendy's.
voided
That's even
any amount of cookies that I
Yeah,
failed to
Wendy's.
eat.
No. You're right here. By the way, you're off tape now, so you can go.
Wendy's is my favorite.
Oh, God. The cholesterol, I can feel my body slowing down. Thank you. Have a good night.